just got to show that the room's not empty. They say, why do you go from San Francisco all the way to Prague?
Well, just to have fun. I mean, you can...
To have fun.
That's a good enough justification, right?
Well, it's a beautiful city. I would come again.
Well, like, hopefully we can, turn this into an annual thing now.
I would love that.
We can
We'll just scratch the surface today, and the next time I'll come and tell more stories.
That's the whole point of this. So what I'm really looking forward to is just now have the chat with you, and thank you, Sarah, for the kind intro of Marian Goodell, the CEO of the Burning Man project. And some of you may be wondering, how's this fitting this whole like Ethereum culture thing and like Ethereum community? Thank you.
Thank you.
And what I'm hoping to achieve here is to actually scratch the surface and like see whether there are overlaps between the Burning Man communities and Ethereum. And essentially, you are the knowledge bearer of a cultural movement that has been running for over 4 decades now, and I think we have a lot to learn from you. So I'm hoping that also people here in the audience will start seeing those similarities and will be able to spot the burners among the ETH folks. So I guess just to get everybody up to speed. So. Is there anyone in the room who doesn't know what Burning Man is? Someone who has never heard of Burning Man? There's one person.
That's pretty good.
And
who has been to Burning Man? Yeah. That's my family. Hi, burners.
So I think like people would see Burning Man as many things, but how do you describe it? What do you think is the best framing? Is it an event? Is it a culture? Is it a movement? How would you describe Burning Man?
Well, 40 years ago, it was happening on a beach on the summer solstice, and it was just one night. And then 30 years ago, it was an overnight event that had maybe 80 people in the Black Rock Desert for 3 days. But somewhere around 25 or 30 years ago, 25 years ago, it became more of a culture, because what was happening there produced an experience that people wanted to replicate. They didn't want to just have it at that moment. So the nonprofit that runs Burning Man now is designed to carry the culture out into the world and to nurture it and encourage it. So we consider ourselves a culture now and not an event.
And thank you for using that framing, because what I here as essentially we could substitute the word Burning Man for Ethereum and like EF to some extent. And I really think, and we already touched on this a couple minutes ago on all these similarities, but let's talk about a structure maybe, just to give people an idea. How does the nonprofit work? Like what is its role within the Burning Man movement?
Sure. I'll even tell you a little bit about it by just giving you a little bit about my history. I went to Burning Man in 1995, and I went again in 1996, and I wanted to help. And I went hunting for the organizers, and there was no internet, really. It was the baby times of the internet. I went to the library. Yes, that's a place we used to go to look for information, and used microfiche, which was certainly pre-internet. And because I felt really like provoked by my experience there. It made me want to play, made me want to investigate. I was really curious. And what I found eventually were the organizers that were loosely organized. There was a person who had the original idea, and there were others around him that were helping facilitate the event. And there was no real business structure initially. They had created a partnership, an American version of a partnership, but that fell apart right around the time that I came around. So then we created a limited liability corporation initially, and a limited liability corporation in the US, an LLC, is very nimble. The partners have total control, and the downside is the partners get taxed by any profits. And our group, we had some founders that hadn't paid taxes a number of years, so we had to figure out, well, how are we going to solve the interpersonal situation before we, took care of the group, which is often the way in which we looked at what we were doing. The LLC structure lasted for a little while until we realized, well, we didn't really want to own pieces of it. And we had just created a business structure because it was nimble. So we created a not-for-profit foundation type, but we have different words for foundations in America, but it's a not-for-profit, where the goals of what we were doing are not related to the individual or the ownership. The goals of what we were doing is related to something bigger. And on many levels, that changes everything. It changed everything for the community to recognize that we weren't in it for ourselves. We had a goal and a mission that had to do with what we're all engaging in. And then from a leadership standpoint, my role was with 6 others. That's why I'm kind of like the first CEO there. We didn't govern it with a CEO or an executive director initially. Larry Harvey, who had the first idea on the beach, he had the most weight in conversations because the theories around our participation came from his learnings. He was self-taught, well-read, but the people that came around him, myself included, all resonated with something that was part of that narrative. And that resonating meant we were committing to the ideas. So one person starting these ideas, expressing them, others coming, formalizing the ideas. And for the ideas to actually have much weight, we had to create an organization that then would be fostering them. That the goal for the organization is to foster those ideas. And now Black Rock City is what people often call Burning Man, but we started calling them something slightly different because you can go to New Zealand, or you can go to Spain, you can actually go to Japan, and people will say they have a Burning Man event, and they call their Burning Man event something different. So the core of how we, like Ethereum has a foundation that helps hold the values, we're doing the same thing. Born in a place where that wasn't what we started with, we moved towards it.
And was it the office in San Francisco at the place which is now called the Frontier Tower, the place where you actually started a nonprofit, or the LLC, or was it?
You're correct. We were working there. We've had about 5 or 6 offices in San Francisco, including like working out of a garage. And getting our tables off from the side of the road because we were that scrappy. Frontier Tower was in a very poor side of the city, but we as burners felt like we're self-expressive, we can handle it, we're not afraid of saying hello to people. And so we spent about 2.5 years there. And now there's this fabulous community that's taken over the building and has different activities there, and every time I go back I feel really touched by the work they're doing.
I think this is another showcase of like how these communities are interlinked.
Yep.
5 months ago, I was in a panel with someone from the Frontier Tower from like completely different background. So I'd love to see these overlaps. You touched on the governance of like what does the nonprofit do like within the whole Burning Man context. How would you describe your role in it? You're the CEO, but you're not the person taking the mic and like walking in front of everybody and being
Right.
on stage. How do you see yourself in that structure?
You know, that's a great question. When I took the role, I did it very carefully because I felt like, one, it was the first CEO, and a lot of people recognized Larry as the founder. And I thought my job was to take these ideas that had been built by the 6 of us at the time. Larry's passed away, so there's 5 of us, and there's 4 others than me. And then my job was to help steer the intentions. I made it really clear that I'm not the boss of everybody. I don't go to Black Rock City, Burning Man, and walk around and tell everybody what to do and pick up this and pick up that. In fact, almost nobody needs to do that because the community takes care of itself. My job is for the nonprofit. That's the difference. And so I'm not the boss of the network of people that do events. I'm not the boss of the community that brings the art and their art cars and their theme camps. I'm just the boss of the business entity. And that business entity's mission is to keep the culture alive out in the world.
I assume that also comes with a lot of like pressure and like being the group and person accountable for like making sure that all of the like over 70,000 people in Black Rock City just kind of follow the basic life rules. But having like stewarding community this large, how do you kind of balance this decision-making process of giving them a voice while you kind of call the shots and like have like some level of like, must be made decisions? What do you think is the difficult part here?
Well, let me tell you how big I think the community is, actually. We have been at about 70 to 80,000 people for more than 10 years at this point, and we think that there's 30, 35, 20%, somewhere in there, it ranges. We do a census every year, so fresh people each year. And now there is a network out in the world where events are happening. Actually, last year, 109,000 people experienced a Burning Man affiliated event that wasn't Black Rock City. So that's 175,000 people. We did our own sloppy math, and we came up with probably 1 million unique people have experienced a Burning Man event, either Black Rock City or out in the world. That is huge. Like, I can handle 70,000 people being irritated because the wait was too long. It is a whole other story to have 1 million people with opinions. The good news is, most of it, if we look at the opinions as they relate to either safety, so in Black Rock City, it's safety first, number one. Second, it's culture. What improves the experience of the people? If the job of what we're doing is holding space so that people will connect and they'll engage, we literally balance those every day. If someone wants the gate to move faster, and it means we have to create more structure, and that structure diminishes the way people engage, we try to find a happy medium. We're always looking for ways to, we're not just improving the capital, the flow of money. We're not just improving the way all of the infrastructure. We want the people to engage. So our decisions have to be weighed in more than one way. It's the benefit of not having stockholders, because I'm not trying to improve their stock value. I'm trying to improve the value of the experience of the culture.
But it also might be kind of the tough part of this, right? Because this is like a community that's hard to define. How do you pick the voices that you feel like are or should be listened to? Because like everybody can have an opinion. There's a lot of loud voices. Yep. How do you actually pick the signals that are important for fostering the culture?
Yeah, great question. I find there's a couple different ways to filter. One is we don't use Twitter to have conversations. Our community might use Twitter, but we literally don't read our Twitter account. I know that's the way other people do it, but it's just such a slog. We do read Reddit, but Reddit is so different because it's really more anonymous, and it really is it can be very mean and bitter. We follow, of course, we have a very great following on Instagram. There's more than 1 million followers there, and then there's lots of Facebook groups. And, I think the difference is between anonymity and authentic self. So if you have anonymous voices, I personally don't weigh it as well or as closely or as tightly as I do with authentic voices. Even an anonymous voice that has a well-written article, if you're going to hide behind your anonymity, in my world, you get more points if you're able to identify who you are, partly because I want to engage you more. If what you're saying and what you're doing is closer to the values, I literally want to bring you in closer. So the way in which I look for people that can contribute are people that are willing to actually help fill out the narrative, come up with solutions, and come close enough to offer help. That's how I got here. I didn't get hired. None of us were paid. I just offered ideas that would help solve the problems. And then my voice was heard. Can't be just a critic all the time. You have to actually look for solutions. You can't just scream and yell. It doesn't get anywhere.
You also use the term show up. I just showed up, and that's how I got involved.
Yeah.
Which I think it's kind of like similar in the Ethereum space. A lot of people just showed up and started doing things, and
Right.
all of a sudden they start driving. Yesterday late at night, we had this conversation with a few folks that actually are burners, and I went to several Burning Mans, and like we were talking about the structure of the organization. And one person was Alaska. I'm not sure if he's sitting right there. I think you used the words, this like space octopus of trying to align parties. And it was Shaka who said it's actually not an octopus, it's more of a starfish. You kind of like cut one piece and you get this spoke community. One of the roles of the nonprofit is essentially picking the affiliation. Can you maybe take us through that process? How do you, like, what types of communities do you engage with? Like, how can a person start a local burn?
Well, Misha is back there. Misha started the Czech community. We met about 14 years ago, and I was passing through town on my way to Slovakia. I wasn't going to stop in Prague, but I did because she sent me a message. I was on a German list, and I'd been in Berlin going to a festival. And, you know, the way you started is showing up and telling your story. And in her case, telling her story of having come to Burning Man, I trusted that she had the values. And then she indicated a desire to connect people together. She did not tell me she wanted to create an event. She didn't say, I want to create big parties. We're going to party on the river. You know, she just said, I want to bring people together around creativity. I believe that my life has been more interesting by having a creative life and having gone to Burning Man. And that's usually the first step. The bigger part are creating events. There's an event in South Africa called Africa Burn, which is around 10,000 people. And Israel has had one that is as big as 8,000 or 9,000. This past one, I think it was 7 or 8. And in both of those cases, individuals actually did the other side, and they said, I want to create a big gathering. And so we vet people differently depending on whether they want to just create community. The individuals that lead locally don't have to create events at all. You might start creating a community, and then someone else comes along and wants to create an event. But the organization won't trust the event producer unless they have a relationship with the community member that we've started to trust. So it is a global trust network. I was just in Nijmegen in the Netherlands, and we had a European Leadership Summit of 230 people, all opting in. Not one person did I go out in the world and say you, but they say, hey, I want to bring people together in Rotterdam. And we said, oh, well, there's a group already in Amsterdam. Well, why don't you guys collaborate? And so we've moved this Leadership Summit around Europe in order for the community to meet each other. So I like to say we centralize in order to decentralize. In order for people to trust each other, we have to see each other in person. We can't just be an online community. We have to find opportunities and events to bring people together. And then we have to, like your conference, have to have places to share ideas. Because we're creating ideas about society and living together and working together. So I would prefer to have a dialogue about it, and I prefer to do it in person. Does that help?
Yeah,
did I go off?
So first time we spoke, you mentioned that you feel like a lot of the similarities with our community could be this approach of peer-to-peer and like doing things like person-to-person. And I hear your point on kind of the authenticity being valued more than anonymity in these like peer-to-peer setups. I think like crypto or Ethereum might be slightly different in the sense that majority of what's happening are online communities and are people just transacting in some way, not only financially, but globally. And I think like anonymity is still a good part of that. But focusing on a peer-to-peer and a centralization versus decentralization part. So I think from the outside, and especially, I guess, like especially thanks to the Black Rock City event, there's the impression that like Burning Man culture is like very open, super permissionless. It's all like based on just like peer-to-peer interactions, and everything goes. But again, with a nonprofit and kind of your accountability and everything, where's the peer-to-peer part just an illusion? Like, you said you have to centralize to decentralize.
So when is it really peer-to-peer and when is it not?
Exactly.
Yeah. Gosh. Well, it really started peer-to-peer, if you will, okay? If you look at the way in which each of us came together, we worked together to build the environment. We worked together to create the rules and the boundaries. An interesting fact that some people know if you get close enough to the organization, excuse me, we hate rules. We actually hate rules.
So rule number one, hate rules.
Rule number one, don't create a rule unless you have to. And when you create a rule, it should be defensible to actually help the community, not to help the organization. Right? Real rules. Organization can have organizational frameworks and organizational processes, but I don't believe rules for the community should benefit the organization. It should benefit the community or the culture. Super big one. But then you get to a point where you can't have everybody. I mean, there is no way that this room right now could reach consensus. We couldn't even probably reach consensus on what time we want to end, or what kind of party we want to have, or what kind of cocktail we want to have afterwards. There's just no way. Under pressure, we could. You know, if our survival was related to it, we might be able to decide that it's for the communal survival. So making decisions and engaging with the community, where you do that depends on the importance of the decision, either related to the survival of the community or the physical survival of the event itself. So, for instance, the survival of Black Rock City is the most important thing at the moment. The survival of the organization, also important. If the two of them were put in front of me, I guess the survival of the organization is the most important at this point, because I wouldn't want to choose the event and it killed the organization, because the organization has a bigger aim in the world. But the decisions towards the survival have to have people that are skilled and knowledgeable and are trusted to make the hard ones about government, about money, about risk. The community, taking in input from the community, depending on where it fits now on that survival mode, is absolutely important. We have a process where people get placed. When you apply to come to Burning Man and you want to be interactive, you can get a location. And the better locations come, the more you create interactivity. When that process 10 years ago was flawed, we can't fix it without input from the outside, because the community is occupying this space that we're creating and curating. So we opened up a new process, which took 2 years. We deliberately picked members of the community to join. We picked people from large camps, from small camps, from noisy camps, from music camps, from all the camps. We represented through an 80-person process, facilitators, breakout groups. That was really transparent. That involved a lot of input, and that had to, because they weren't happy. The community had different feelings about, are we doing the right thing, and are we happy in our camps? But I'm not going to have a very large group when I decide how we're going to pay the government and how we're going to fight a permit issue, and the permit issue is something that's our job to fix. I listen to people when they email me and they say, I've worked for the government, I know how to consult with the government. I bring them in. We have lots of little groups of people that have expertise that I need, but I can't put a post out on Reddit saying, today we were wondering.
Can anyone please get the permits? Like,
Right.
anyone, do we have any?
Do you think that should we change for instance, sometimes people tell us we should change the date of the event. There's an American holiday called Labor Day. It means we have an extra day for Burning Man. Every 4 or 5 years, someone says we should change the date. I am not going to put that out for a vote. That's absurd. Because then we're stuck with our own transparency of saying, what do you want? So don't ask someone a question if you don't want their answer. That kind of doesn't work. Ask their opinion. What is everybody's opinion about the date is much better than saying, do you want us to change it? Do you want this date or that date? We know that some people would want to change it, but some people don't. See? I don't have to change it. I can change it if I want. That's an interesting one. Like, what's important to us? What are the ramifications? Well, what is it people want changed? They want their kids to come. That's one of the reasons why people want us to change it, because people go back to school. I can't change it just for that.
Right. I think there's a lot of lessons learned for the DEF CON team, if anyone is in the audience. So also want to talk about leadership and culture, the cultural transmission, which is the mission of the organization. What's your own role in the BlackRock City event? What can you describe to the audience, like how does your experience now attending the BlackRock City looks like?
I've had pretty much every experience possible. I started off, I was in art school and I went to Burning Man and I was finishing a photography degree. So I went to Burning Man, took pictures and made art. Then I found the organizers and I ran the media team initially, and then I ran the DPW that does the setup, so I've been super involved in that portion. And once I became the CEO, there were many other people doing the operations, so I didn't really have to worry about whether the roads are watered and whether the fence had been put up yet. I developed an environment for myself and some of the other founders that is a camp. Because working and running Burning Man I was out there for 3 weeks sometimes. It was super lonely. And when my sister offered to come visit and Larry's brother wanted to come visit and the CFO wants his sister to come every now and then, we just decided to create a camp. And our camp, though, is a microcosm of Burning Man. We're not all paid staff running it, but the family members are all expected to help run the camp. So if you want to come camp with us, you have to do dishes. So I get to do what I call kind of it's a dinner party within a dinner party. We curate a camp of about 150 people, and their intention is to actually help support, so it's like meta. In order for us to do what we're doing, we kind of need a support structure, but what we do is we have our own little kitchen, we have a couple little bars, people do yoga. So I'm curating a little micro village.
There is a popular term in the Ethereum ecosystem, gardening. So I think a lot of like how EF has been describing their role in the ecosystem is like just trying to help this infinite garden to grow. I also find a lot of similarities in your approach, essentially dog fooding and actually creating this microcosm of the experience.
Absolutely.
Like over the years. Touching on the aspect of leadership and like certain people in the community who then like take action, did you see people from your camp to kind of like go out and actually like manifest what the life experience has been inside of your camp on a little dinner party, or are you trying to like keep your friends close?
Oh gosh, no, just the opposite. I've got some campmates. So a famous museum in the United States, the Smithsonian, did a Burning Man show, and I had the curator of the Smithsonian at my camp for one day. For me, she was manifesting Burning Man culture through her museum. There are a couple other people that have done festivals around the world, and what I get from that is I get to hear about how they create culture. But there's also other campmates that come and they never want to stop going. We have some consultants in Washington, D.C. that help us do politics. And they love to tell the stories about how it's changed their lives and how they go and manifest culture out in the world. So I do a little bit of both.
And what would you say is the secret sauce here? You mentioned people want to bring their kids. Burning Man, the Black Rock City events have been happening literally like longer than I'm alive. So what I'm wondering is what's the mechanism? What keeps it running across the
secret sauce?
generations?
Yeah, the secret sauce are the 10 principles. And the 10 principles were written in 2004. We started in 1996 on a beach, so 40 years ago, like you said. In 1990, we went to the desert. And it was quite a bit of time until the regional network kind of came up out of it. And it came up around 1997, 1998. And people said, how can I do this out in the world? And I put them on an email list, and I just sort of said, well, you can figure it out with each other, because I was busy running things, and I would answer questions on the email list every now and then. But I put Larry, the founder, on the email list, and I kept saying, would you answer these guys, answer their questions? Why do we do this? Why do we have no trash cans? I don't know if you guys realize it, but we have no trash cans at Burning Man. It's the community's job, and we don't have people going around picking it up. This is not like Glastonbury or a normal festival where each night someone has picked everything up. That's up to the community. These are things that showed up by common sense. If you don't have any trash cans, you have to learn to manage your own trash. So in 2004, he sort of had enough, because I kept asking him, tell people why we don't have trash cans. Tell people why we don't tell people who to vote for. Tell people there's no bartering, it's only gifting. And we were using the vocabulary ourselves. And he went to vacation in Mexico, and he came back with 9 principles. And we gave him a hard time. We told him that, well, aren't there 10 commandments? Where are the 10th principle? And he went away and came back with a 10th one called immediacy. So these are all related to our experience. And he just went and looked and said, what works? Let's write it down. And the purpose of that was because the community was asking, could you give us a little bit more info? Could you give us a tip? And to go on the internet and write a letter every time someone wants to know why. And once he wrote those, it was a lot easier. Everything fit. They talk about the individual, they talk about the community, they talk about how the community interacts with one another. And they're meant to be descriptive, not prescriptive, but they're really easy to follow. It's like, oh, okay, gifting, okay, I got it. Civic engagement, radical self-reliance, like literally, bring everything you need to survive, as opposed to everybody's going to provide it for you. But in the context of working together, work together. Communal effort. They all work together. That's our secret sauce.
Mm-hmm. And I imagine a lot of people like just manifested daily and through the microcosms that you create, you kind of like live by those principles. You mentioned those were formalized in 2004, right? Was that, do you see this as like a big marker of like before the 10 principles were actually said out loud and after?
Well, the difference is the community was able to start replicating faster because there was guidelines.
So afterwards you started seeing more of these like regional...
so much so that we couldn't manage it, that there were so many people asking and that were interested. We have a queue even now. We can't even bring people in fast enough. We have to change the system. Now, where we've evolved is that we're trying to create a system for the system to replicate itself, right? So now we have about 300 people around the world that are these network leaders. And we've been experimenting with how do we give the role to them to pick the new leaders that are in these areas. And picking leaders is super complicated in that we used to just take anybody that raised their hand and we would interview them for leadership potential. And then we said, well, if you're in Seattle, which is a real story, we didn't just say, oh, okay, great. We now take recommendations from other community members. So we actually put the name out there and say, Jill and Jim and Bob are all going for this regional, give us your feedback. All confidential, comes to us, and then we interview them. And there's an interview team that includes local leaders and us. So getting into that position over time became harder because we learned a lot of lessons. We learned that some people just want power. They just want to be in charge. But we can manage that if we use community input and we use our own input, we are more successful. But now, if that's how we do it, why can't we give that to the community to keep doing it? Because it's a lot of work. When there's drama or someone's like, get rid of it, we have to like interview a lot of people. Like we do a lot of conflict resolution, a lot.
So my follow-up question kind of goes the direction of like what's...
Do we have questions, answering questions or not? Are we
I think we'll have time for
Okay,
questions.
okay.
We have 13 minutes left, right? Yeah. 15 minutes, perfect.
15?
Yeah,
Okay,
so,
good.
so I'll ask like maybe 2 more questions and then
Oh, yeah,
we can
fine.
take questions from
I wasn't sure how
audience.
much time we
Yeah.
had.
So to what extent do you think it was important for Larry to work on the principles? And similarly, how do you see kind of yourself in this like leadership position? You previously said that's a big question, right? Like how do you pick the new leaders? But from your experience, what are the traits? Like what are the virtues of a person that are important?
What makes a good leader? Well, I mean, you have to, in a cultural world like mine, which is probably similar to Ethereum's, I think one, you have to be a leader that it shows by doing. It's not really telling. I think that's why the principles really worked. Like, here's the framework. Step into them. If you step into them, you'll find like-minded people. He never asked a person, oh, what's your favorite principle? And, oh, you're not behaving like that. That's not a leader in our culture. I think you have to let your ego go. You really have to be in it for something else. You're not in it for yourself at all. You might get a lot of honor. You might get a lot of publicity. You might have to talk on stage a lot. But you should really do that in service for something, not in service to make yourself famous or well-known, but you're doing it because it helps elevate the story you're telling. I think you have to be able to pivot and change, listen to change, not be so stuck in your principles that you can't hear other ideas, but also have your feet on the ground and not being pulled in lots of different directions, because culture moves like this, and if you have a vision, like I'm holding the space for the Burning Man vision, I have my own, I just wrap it into it. I weave it around. I think leadership in any culture environment has to be, service related, and manage your ego, and listen, bring good people around. I think you have to be good at assessing personality and judgment, good people skills. Yeah.
It makes sense. So my last question, and then we'll have some room for the audience. So I just want to touch on a few hinge moments in kind of orchestrating the Black Rock City. So can you tell us what happened in 1996 and how that kind of influenced before and after? Like, what did it show you about the limits of improvisation?
We've seen so much drama in Burning Man's history. And some of it's like imposed by people and some of it's imposed by weather. 2018, Larry passed away. That was, a crisis. The pandemic, we got through, we have 140 employees. People don't realize that. It's a $68 million endeavor. And so getting through the pandemic was a big deal. But the real crisis probably that was a do or die, we were either going to live or die. The biggest one probably was in 1996 and 1997 when there was a leadership change. And it went from these three men that had, similar but different ideas. You had an anarchist and a communitarian, and then there was an accident at the event site and people were injured. Another person died in a different accident, but the way in which they resolved that was in friction. And they couldn't really resolve together the future. They couldn't resolve how to talk about what happened. They couldn't even, reach each other compassionately about it. And that's where I got to come around. I was part of the next leadership from that time period. And the next year, the event almost didn't happen. We had to move to private land because the government said, you're done. And we said, no, we're not, but we'll come back. So yeah, we never waste a good crisis. I think you learn a lot in crisis.
Well, thank you for
Lean
showing
into
up
it.
in that time. So we have, I think, 9-10 minutes for the questions. Can we please get a mic so we can also record a question? I think there's one gentleman over there.
Oh, I see our little timer.
Yeah.
Hello, yeah, I'll be going to Burning Man for the first time this year,
Oh, good.
and we got a bunch of people from around the world kind of traveling. And this
Fabulous.
year's theme is, I do infrastructure for decentralized events, right? So this year's theme is Axis Mundi. And I'm wondering, because there's always been an interesting capability or possibility to connect the regional burns with the central burn, but there's no, what I'd call, structural or infrastructure that actually connects them, if you know what I mean, that makes you feel when you're a part of one burn that you're connected to others, apart from the general philosophy. And given this year's theme and your long-term ambitions in the not-for-profit community sense, if you like, how do you see the future of that community in terms of its decentralized global structure?
I love your question. When we started the regional network, it was just because people were coming to me. I ran a newsletter that now has 200,000 people on it, and they were asking me, how can I do an event? How can I find my people? And my goal was just to give them the resources and let them do it. We were so busy building the event, I couldn't even think of anything more. We started doing a leadership conference in around 2007, I think, 2006, 2007. So we would have people come to California. That was one of the ways that I thought we could do it, is have people meet each other, and then they could also then create that network. We call it the regional network. And now there's the one in Europe, because the one in America got too big. We couldn't financially manage it after 600 people. We wanted people to come for like more or less free, and it cost us $500,000, and the accountants were like, until you charge more. And so we're like, I can't charge more, so let's figure out a different way. But the reason why I love that question is that the dynamic originally with the regionals were like, we don't want to be too close. Don't get too close. We got it. Over the years, when it's clear that the relationship really helps everybody, we give advice when someone has a death on site. You can call us up and we'll help you with the media. We'll help you figure out your strategies around gate for free. And more recently, the question you're asking is coming up, well, how can we network everybody together? Where is there a database? If you go to Africa Burn, are you a member of the Burning Man Network? How can I learn more about what's happening at other places? And I am in service to what the community wants. I think in this day and age, if I said everybody here is connected, it's not going to go. But this year, the event I was just at 2 weeks ago, they started talking about a pan-European event for the first time. They talked about it before, but they actually had a meeting and they created a WhatsApp. So for me, that's the beginning of a desire coming from the community to feel, how are we affiliated? And then the other piece is, what if you don't go to Burning Man, but you want to be affiliated to Burning Man? What if you want to be recognized for having gatherings or having a work maker space, so that you want your community to feel recognized in some way? Absolutely part of what we're trying to do. And we're trying to do it with the input rather than in this direction. So it's real.
And in terms of coming to an Ethereum conference here and the community here and the technology, there's quite a gap between the Burning Man culture and the decentralized technology culture, but there's a beautiful possibility of one providing the decentralized infrastructure to connect those events. Is that something you're actively pursuing?
I mean, I'm fascinated. I accepted the invitation, Joseph's invitation, because more and more often people are talking about a relationship between Burning Man culture and DAOs, and there are so many people in the crypto world that love Burning Man, and one of our board members is an attorney for some people that are big into crypto, and everybody's always like, yeah, we're the same family. I'm here to learn. That's why I accepted the invitation. I'm always looking for synergies. I'm always looking for how to improve my vocabulary for what I'm doing. and I'm looking to, if we're gonna live in a world that has more connective relationships, more compassionate understanding of people's differences, if we're gonna build things together, there has to be affinities and bridges across one another.
Hi, you said that Burning Man is a culture and not an event.
Yes.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I would like to hear, what is your vision? What is the most ambitious vision of what that culture looks like 25 years from now? Kind of aside and beyond the event.
Well, we're constrained by cash, mostly. And there is a wide variety of wealth in the Burning Man community. I've got people on assistance, public assistance, I've got cafe workers, and I have, Elon doesn't go anymore, but Sergey Brin. And my dream would be that through everybody's desire for culture and change, that they would see that Burning Man is a portal for that, and we can actually help give people access to connective experiences, but to do it in a way that is generous without demanding it. More people, I think, could go to Burning Man, Black Rock City, if we had ticket prices that were more manageable, because it costs a lot to get there. I think that there would be more Burning Man-like organizations and leadership out in the world if we could fund people that wanted to do the work. Misha has another job, but for, I think, a year, we gave her a fellowship so that she could travel in Europe. Whenever someone had questions about leadership, there was a guy in Egypt that wanted to start a Burning Man group. For her to go visit him and to give him the advice was worth the fellowship that we gave her. But, it's a slower process without the cash flow. 25 years from now, my guess is Black Rock City won't exist. I plan for that piece. I've always thought that a success for Burning Man would be people will look back and say, oh, that was back when there was Black Rock City, but we're Burning Man, and that Burning Man means whatever that pop-up experience is around the world.
I think we have time for one more question, maybe two.
Good, I'll talk fast.
Yeah, thank you for coming here. It's lovely to hear you and your story. It's lovely to hear you and your story. Thanks for coming to Prague. My question is that many modern companies, like crypto companies, try to work with community in the way that I give you referral program, so you can get 50 euros if you invite your friend. Yes, it's really commercial. And my question is, how do you see these big companies? Can they change this approach? Is it possible to work with community apart of providing some memes on Twitter, or build a culture from this? Or it's not possible because it's commercial world? Yes.
I love your question. I'm asked to speak all over the world in all kinds of different countries. I've been to Russia, and I've been to Romania, and I've spoken in Hungary, and here I am in Prague, and I was just in Slovakia. I love going to countries that are not in America because people are curious. One of the most interesting talks I did was in Switzerland, and the guy had never been to Burning Man, and he came to me and he said, I want you to speak to this businessman's conference because I think that better citizens come, and the companies can learn that there are better citizens if they have more of an opportunity to be creative and expressive, not weirdly touchy-feely expressive, but more like, and not like, how's everybody doing this morning? And everybody has to talk for 15 minutes about whatever it is they just did last night. It's more like creating opportunity for people even outside of work, or book clubs at work, like just things that have people feel connected around their culture together. And having a culture, a corporate culture that makes people feel connected, that's the thing that I enjoy talking about most. I've spoken to banks about it. I don't even know what their culture is. I can just talk about the ways in which if you have culture and you can bring people together and you find ways for them to enjoy each other's company and give them a sense of being an individual, I think it's absolutely possible for us to be really good citizens and really good staff members and really good employees, but also be working in a company that has culture, and that culture isn't just a capitalistic culture, but it's a culture about people. Absolutely positive it can work together. I absolutely believe it. I'm definitely running Burning Man itself, like the organization itself is run in that way. We have to make money, we have to make decisions, but we also have an organizational culture. So I believe that's the journey I'm on. I'd love to help.
Thank you. Maybe
Do
one
we-
last question. I think we're
Do
on
we have-
time, but do you have any closing word, anything that you want to say to the Ethereum community?
I think being in a cultural experience, it takes patience. And it takes anybody, any participant in any format in the whole part of it, it's about letting go of your ego if you really believe in the principles of what you're doing. So at Burning Man, whether you work the gate, still having that kindness and listening and having that patience because someone has been driving all night and they're upset. And for me to also, even though the Reddit comments irritate me, still listening with an open heart and finding that place where, you know, I honestly believe the whole point, and I can see it here with the kind faces, really nice faces, by the way, you guys, listening and learning, that's our whole point. We're really here. So many people have said hi to me. Like, that's what happens at Burning Man. Strangers say hi to each other. And if we're going to be out in the world and we're at McDonald's or we're at a bar or we're waiting for the tram and we don't look up, that's a heartbreaker. Just looking up and nodding at the person next to you is how we're bridging the gap. And that's what Burning Man's taught me. Just make eye contact and smile.
It's a
That's my
beautiful
lesson
message.
for today.
Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you guys.